All right, folks. It's me, Louis C. K., or as my ex-wife likes to call me, that guy who owes me therapy bills till 2047. Yeah, I know. The hair's a little grayer, the gut's auditioning for its own zip code. And I'm up here in 2025 talking about marriage. Like it's not a federal crime against sanity. But hey, the title of this bit? Why Lasting Marriage is a Miracle. And let me tell you, if you're in one right now or thinking about it, or God forbid, renewing vows like some masochistic Groundhog Day, strap in. This ain't Hallmark. This is the unfiltered truth, served with a side of why the fuck do we do this to ourselves? Let's dive in. Marriage. Marriage. You know, when I got hitched back in the day, I thought it was like signing up for a lifetime subscription to Netflix, but with more arguing over the remote and zero option to cancel without losing half your shit. It's supposed to be this beautiful partnership, right? Two souls intertwining, building a life, raising tiny humans who will one day blame you for their daddy issues. But let's be real. Lasting marriage isn't a miracle because it's hard. It's a miracle because it's basically two people agreeing to slowly poison each other with resentment, bad habits, and that one person's insistence on leaving the toilet seat up like it's a goddamn art installation. Think about it. You start out all fireworks and foreplay, whispering sweet nothings like, "I love how you laugh and your farts are adorable." Fast forward 5 years, and it's "I love how you laugh at my jokes," even though they're the same ones from 2010. Turning into "if you laugh at one more dad joke, I'm sleeping in the garage with the lawnmower." And sex? Oh man. Early on, it's like Olympic-level gymnastics, contorted positions, endurance tests, the works. By year 10, it's more like a quick game of Twister, where the spinner lands on missionary every time, and you're both just hoping no one pulls a hamstring. Miracles happen when you wake up next to the same person after decades and think, hey, they're still hotter than divorce court on a Monday. But here's the brutal part. Marriage exposes you, naked. Not just the birthday suit kind, though God knows that's awkward enough after kids, when your body's like a deflated whoopee cushion. No, it's all naked. You see every flaw, every insecurity, every time they chew like a wood chipper or leave their toenail clippings on the coffee table like modern art. My wife, ex-wife, whatever, knew I was a selfish prick who prioritized a good nap over family game night. And I knew she had this passive-aggressive way of folding laundry that said, "I hope you choke on this fitted sheet." Yet somehow, some of us stick it out. Why? Because the alternative, being alone with your thoughts, is a horror movie. You end up talking to your cat, or worse, swiping on apps where everyone's profile pic is filtered to hell and their bio reads, "just looking for someone who gets my love of true crime podcasts." Spoiler, they don't. And kids? Jesus Christ, kids are the ultimate cockblock to romance. You go from date nights at fancy Italian spots to microwaving chicken nuggets at 2 a.m., while one kid's screaming about monsters under the bed, and the other's drawing on the walls with what you praise, just yogurt. Marriage becomes a United Nations summit, negotiating who changes the next diaper, who picks up the dry cleaning, who pretends to care about town meetings. It's exhausting. But the miracle? When after 20 years of this chaos, you catch your partner's eye across a room full of screaming toddlers. Or in my case, teenagers who think you're the Antichrist, and you both just get it. You laugh. Not at a joke, but at the absurdity of it all. We're still here. Holy shit, we're still here. Look, I'm divorced now, twice over, so take this with a grain of salt, or a whole salt lick. But I've seen friends make it work, not because they're perfect, because they're stubborn idiots like the rest of us. They fight fair-ish, they apologize without saying, "But you started it." And they remember that under all the baggage, there's still that spark. The one that made you think, yeah, this lunatic is worth the lifetime of compromise. Lasting marriage is a miracle because life throws curveballs. Jobs that suck the soul out of you. Bodies that betray you. Secrets that fester like that one sock you can't find. And yet, you choose each other. Every damn. So if you're married, high five your spouse tonight. Then go to bed early. Because tomorrow's another round of pass the remote warfare. If you're single, run while you can, but know deep down, we're all just monkeys looking for another monkey to share the banana. if you're me. Well, I'm up here telling jokes about it, because what else am I gonna do? Actually fix myself. Nah. That's the real miracle. None of us have any idea what we're doing, and somehow love stumbles through anyway. You know the honeymoon phase, man. It's like the universe's cruelest joke on humanity. You meet someone, sparks fly, and suddenly you're convinced you found the missing puzzle piece to your miserable existence. Everything about them is perfect. Their laugh? It's like music from heaven. Not that annoying cackle they'll become later when they're mocking your cooking. Their quirks? Endearing. The way they snort when they laugh or leave their socks balled up in the corner. Adorable little traits that make them unique. And the sex? Oh, sweet Jesus, the sex. It's fireworks, explosions, the kind of stuff that makes you think, this is what all the poets were talking about. Positions you didn't even know existed. Stamina like you're both training for the Olympics. And that post-coital glow where you stare into each other's eyes and whisper profound shit like, you're mine, everything. It's all dopamine and endorphins, baby. Your brain's high on love chemicals, telling you this is forever. This is bliss, this is what life's been building toward. But then, bam, real life kicks in, the honeymoon fades, and what you're left with is this slow, creeping realization that you're not with a perfect specimen, you're with another flawed human being who chews with their mouth open sometimes or hogs the blankets like it's their God-given right. It starts subtle, you know? Maybe after a couple of years, the fireworks turn into a steady campfire. Still warm, still nice, but no more spontaneous bonfires in the backyard. You go from making out in the car like teenagers to pecking on the cheek because you're both too tired from work to muster anything more. And that's where the miracle begins, folks. Because lasting marriage isn't about holding on to that initial rush. It's about evolving into this comfortable routine where you still find comfort in the mundane, where endearing morphs into tolerable, and then, if you're lucky, back to something resembling affection. Take me, for example. When I first got married, it was all passion and promise. We were young, dumb, and horny. We'd stay up all night talking about our dreams, our fears, the future kids we'd have who wouldn't turn out to be little sociopaths. We'd fuck like rabbits, anywhere, anytime. Kitchen counter, check. Backseat of the car, double check. Even the shower, though, that always ended with someone slipping and bruising their ass. It felt electric. But fast forward 5 years and it's different. Not bad, mind you, just different. Now sex is scheduled like a doctor's appointment. Hey babe, Thursday night after the kids are asleep, I've got a window between 9 and 9:15. And even then, it's more about efficiency than ecstasy. You go for the quick win, because tomorrow's another day of time meetings and laundry piles that multiply like gremlins. The routine sets in hard. You start noticing the little things that grate. She leaves the cap off the toothpaste again, squeezing from the middle like a psychopath. He forgets to put the toilet seat down, leading to that 3 a.m. splashdown. That's more wake-up call than nightmare. But here's the rub. In the honeymoon phase, you'd laugh it off. Maybe even find it cute. Oh, he's so forgetful, my little absent-minded professor. Post-honeymoon, it's ammo. It builds up this quiet resentment. You don't explode right away. No, it's a slow boil. You sigh a little louder, roll your eyes a bit more dramatically. And suddenly what was endearing becomes exhausting. The way they breathe too loud when they're concentrating, or how they always pick the wrong lane at the grocery store checkout. But the miracle, it's when you adapt. When you realize that this shift from passion to partnership is the real deal. It's not about recapturing the spark, though therapy and date nights try to sell you that lie. Nah, it's about accepting the embers. You learn to appreciate the comfort of knowing someone's routines as well as your own. You wake up, and there they are, same bed, same side, same morning breath that you've grown oddly accustomed to. It's like upgrading from a sports car to a minivan. Sure, the sports car was thrilling, but the minivan hauls the kids, the groceries, and doesn't break down every other week. Think about the physical changes, too. In the honeymoon, bodies are temples, tight, eager, ready for worship. But time marches on, and suddenly there's a paunch here. A sag there, stretch marks from pregnancies that look like abstract art gone wrong. Hair in places it shouldn't be migrating to. Sex evolves from marathon sessions to sprints, or sometimes just a cuddle because I'm too full from dinner, and you both know it. You catch each other glancing in the mirror, sucking in the gut, and instead of judging, you just chuckle. Hey, we're in this together, flab and all. That's the miracle, finding attraction in the familiar, not the fantasy. Then there's the emotional side. Honeymoon love is blind, deaf, and dumb. You ignore red flags waving like they're party streamers. He's a bit controlling. Nah, he's just passionate. She nags a lot. That's just her way of caring. But as the phase fades, those flags turn into billboards. You see the incompatibilities. Your sleep schedules don't match, your spending habits clash, your families drive each other nuts. Arguments start real ones, not the cute bickering over who picks the movie. They escalate over stupid shit like whose turn it is to unload the dishwasher, and resentment creeps in. You think, is this it? Is this what I signed up for? Yet, in lasting marriages, you push through. You communicate awkwardly at first, then better. You learn to say, hey, that bugs me, without it turning into World War III. You compromise on the little things, realizing that winning every battle means losing the war. The routine becomes a rhythm. Mornings. Coffee together, even if one reads the paper and the other scrolls their phone. Evenings. Dinner where you debrief the day, laughing about the boss's dumb email or the kid's latest tantrum. Sex might be less frequent, but when it happens, it's deeper, more about connection than conquest. You know each other's bodies like a well-worn map, shortcuts and all. And the kids amplify everything. Honeymoon couples dream of babies as these cherubic additions to their perfect life. Reality, they're chaos agents. Sleep deprivation turns you into zombies, arguing over who gets up for the 2 a.m. feeding. Date nights? Good luck finding a sitter who doesn't charge an arm and a leg. Romance takes a back seat to survival. But again, the miracle is in the adaptation. You tag team parenting like pros, stealing moments. A quick kiss in the kitchen, a hand squeeze during story time. The passion fades, but intimacy grows in new ways. Shared exhaustion inside jokes about the baby's first poop explosion. That quiet pride when you both handle a crisis without falling apart. Professionally, life intervenes too. Jobs suck the energy out. One partner's career takes off, the other stalls, leading to jealousy masked as support. Money fights ensue. We can't afford that vacation. But lasting couples pivot. They budget together, dream together, support each other's ambitions even when it's inconvenient. The routine of bills, mortgages, retirement plans becomes the backbone. It's not sexy, but it's stable. And stability after the honeymoon whirlwind feels like a goddamn miracle. Socially, friends change. Honeymooners party like rock stars, but marriage brings the slow drift. Weekends turn from bar crawls to Netflix binges. You lose touch with single pals who think you're boring now. But your partner becomes your best friend, your confidant. You share the load of social obligations, holidays with in-laws that feel like endurance tests. The miracle is building a world that's just yours, where the outside noise fades because you've got each other to lean on. Health issues creep in too. The first gray hair, the first ache that doesn't go away. You see your partner age and it hits you. This is forever, warts and all. But instead of bolting, you care for each other. You rub their back after a long day, remind them to take their meds. Passion? It's there in the tenderness, the way you hold hands not for show, but for comfort. And let's talk about the boredom. A honeymoon is all novelty, marriage is repetition. Same stories retold 100 times, same vacations to the same beach house. But the miracle is finding joy in the predictable. You laugh at the retold joke because you know the punchline, but you love the delivery. You cherish the traditions. Thanksgiving turkey that's always overcooked. Anniversaries marked with takeout because cooking's too much hassle. Intimacy shifts too. Early on, it's all physical. Later, it's emotional nudity. You confess fears, vulnerabilities without fear of judgment. I'm scared about getting old. Me too, but we'll face it together. That's deeper than any orgasm. The fade isn't a loss. It's a gain. You trade intensity for depth. The routine becomes a sanctuary from the world's chaos. You know their coffee order, their tell when they're lying, their favorite spot on the couch. It's comforting, like an old sweater. Challenges test it. Infidelity temptations, midlife crises, empty nests. But lasting marriages weather them by remembering the foundation built post-honeymoon. Communication, respect, laughter. These sustain, in the end. Wait, no conclusion, but you get it! The shift is profound, from thrilling uncertainty to reliable companionship. It's miraculous because society sells eternal passion, but reality delivers something better, enduring love in the everyday. You still choose each other daily, flaws intact, finding beauty in the ordinary. That's the true romance, the one that lasts. You know, marriage. It's like signing up for the world's longest, most intimate reality show where the cameras never stop rolling. And the only prize is not killing each other by year 20. And the twist? It starts with you both in full costume. Makeup on point. Lighting just right. Projecting this version of yourselves that's all highlights and no lowlights. But then the seasons drag on. And the producers, life kids, mortgages, that creeping middle-age spread, strip away the filters. Suddenly, every quirk, every insecurity, every goddamn flaw is exposed under those harsh fluorescents. And you're left staring at each other like, who the hell let this clown into my tent? That's the soul-naked part I was talking about earlier. But let's unpack it. Because if lasting marriage is a miracle, it's because surviving this exposure isn't just hard. It's a full contact sport with no helmets. Picture the early days. You're dating, maybe engaged, and it's all smoke and mirrors. You curate your best self, the charming stories, the thoughtful gestures, the sex that's so mind-blowing it feels like you're inventing new positions on the spot. Flaws. Buried deep, like that one drawer in your apartment full of expired coupons and mystery chords. You don't fart in front of them until month 6. And even then, it's accidental, played off with a sheepish grin, and a, whoops, must be the burrito. Insecurities? Locked in the vault. You don't admit to the nagging fear that you're not smart enough, or pretty enough, or successful enough. You're too busy building the myth of perfection. It's exhilarating, this game of presentation, but it's also exhausting, because deep down you know it's bullshit. You're not fooling anyone forever, least of all yourself. Then comes the wedding, the vows, the I-dos. That sounds so poetic, but really translate to I promise to tolerate your bullshit starting now. And for a while the illusion holds. But move in together and boom, the first crack appears. It's something small, innocuous. The way they load the dishwasher like they're auditioning for a serial killer role. Stacking plates in a way that guarantees water spots and eternal grudge holding. Or how they sing off-key in the shower, not in that cute indie band way, but like a cat being strangled by a bagpipe. In the dating phase, you'd have laughed, maybe even joined in with your own warble. But now, it's grating. A daily reminder that this person, this stranger you're legally bound to, has habits that clash with yours like oil and holy water. And just like that, the exposure begins. You can't hide anymore. The shared space forces it out. Psychologists call this the vulnerability stress adaptation model or some fancy shit like that. Basically, your pre-existing baggage, those neurotic vulnerabilities we all carry like invisible luggage, gets unpacked in the pressure cooker of marriage. You think you're chill, but turn the heat up with bills, piling, kids screaming, and suddenly your partner's little tick, the way they bite their nails during arguments or leave wet towels on the bed like a passive-aggressive sponge, triggers something primal. It's not just annoying, it's a mirror to your own flaws. Because here's the kicker, while you're spotting theirs, they're spotting yours. That time you snap at them for forgetting milk at the store, that's your insecurity bubbling up. The fear that you're not in control, that you're failing at this adulting gig. Or the way you retreat into silence after a fight. Not because you're processing, but because you're terrified of saying the wrong thing and confirming you're unlovable. Marriage doesn't create these flaws. It shines a goddamn spotlight on them, forcing you to confront the fact that you're both just messy humans pretending to have our shit together. Take me, for instance. God, where do I even start? When I first shacked up with my ex, it was all rose-tinted glasses. I play the funny guy, the provider, the one who could fix anything with a joke or a late-night run for ice cream. But peel back the layers, and there I was, a selfish prick who prioritized my comedy writing marathons over family dinners, leaving her to handle the chaos solo while I found my muse in a dimly lit room with a bottle of scotch. She saw it early, the way I'd zone out mid-conversation, my mind already scripting punchlines instead of listening to her day. And me? I clocked her passive-aggressive, a laundry folding, those crisp corners that screamed, If you won't help, at least let me control this fitted sheet before I snap. It wasn't malice. It was her way of coping with the resentment building like plaque on teeth. We'd argue about it. Of course. Me accusing her of nagging, her calling me checked out, and each fight stripped another layer, revealing the insecurities underneath. The deep-seated belief that I'm not enough, that my career's a fluke and I'll end up a washed-up as, been begging for gigs at kids' parties. Hers, the exhaustion of being the emotional laborer, wondering if she'd traded her dreams for a man who treated fatherhood like a side hustle. And it's not just the quirks, it's the big, ugly vulnerabilities that marriage drags kicking and screaming into the light. You know the ones, those midnight thoughts when you're alone, staring at the ceiling, questioning your worth. In a relationship, solitude's a luxury you can't afford. Your partner's right there, sharing the bed, the bills, the existential dread. Suddenly, your fear of aging hits different when it's not just your sagging jawline in the mirror, but hers too, and you're both pretending not to notice while brushing teeth side by side. Or financial stress. In the honeymoon haze, money's abstract. We'll figure it out vibe. But when the economy tanks or a kid needs braces, it exposes the gambler in you, the one who blows rent money on fantasy football, or her impulse buys that fill closets with clothes she never wears. These aren't character defects. They're human frailties, wired into us from years of surviving on our own. But marriage, it turns survival mode into shared vulnerability where one person's weak spot becomes the other's potential landmine. Research backs this up. Studies show that in long-term marriages, these exposures can lead straight to depressive symptoms if not handled right, especially when neurotic tendencies amp up the hostility. You start snapping more, withdrawing less, because every flaw you spot in them feels like a judgment on you. I remember nights where I'd lie awake, convinced she was disappointed in me. Not for anything specific, but just for being me. The guy who laughs at funerals to cope, who eats cereal for dinner when stressed, who once forgot our anniversary because I was deep in a bit about airplane food. And she'd wake up the next day, folding those sheets tighter, her silence louder than any accusation. It builds this cycle. Exposure leads to resentment, resentment to fights to more exposure. You're not just seeing their flaws, you're living them, breathing them in like secondhand smoke from a bad habit you can't quit. But here's where it gets hilariously tragic. Kids enter the picture, and the exposure goes nuclear. Before them, flaws were personal. With them, they're parental. Suddenly, your partner's relaxed approach to bedtime routines reveals a deeper laziness, or your creative discipline style exposes a short fuse inherited from your own fucked up childhood. My ex and I, we were a masterclass in mismatch. I'd come home from a show, wired on adrenaline, ready to play monster under the bed with the girls, but she'd already wrangled them into pajamas, her eyes screaming, "Where the hell were you while I solo parented this circus?" My flaw, emotional unavailability masked as the fun dad. Hers, micromanaging the chaos to feel in control, which just made me feel emasculated. The kids saw it all. The eye rolls, the slam doors, and it forced us to confront how our insecurities were modeling dysfunction. Was I teaching them that love means showing up late with jokes instead of presents? Was she showing them that partnership is a checklist, not a dance? Exposure like that doesn't just hurt, it terrifies, because now it's not just about us. It's about the tiny humans absorbing our mess. And don't get me started on the physical side, because bodies betray us too, and marriage makes you witnesses to the crime scene. Early on, you're all gym selfies and lingerie, bodies as playgrounds. But time. It carves its graffiti. The stretch marks from pregnancies that look like roadmaps to regret. The beer gut that jiggles when you laugh, or cry. The erectile glitches that turn, not tonight, into a referendum on your manhood. My ex's body changed after the kids. Curves where there were angles, exhaustion etched in the lines around her eyes. And instead of it being sexy evolution, it became a flashpoint. I'd catch myself staring, not in lust, but in that insecure way, wondering if I still turned her on or if she saw me as the schlub I'd become. She'd notice my wandering eyes and snap, "What, not hot enough for you anymore?" Boom, flaws exposed. My shallow vanity clashing with her postpartum vulnerability. Sex which used to be escape becomes negotiation. Is it the lights off, the position, or is it me? And in those moments, you're raw, soul naked, begging for reassurance while knowing your own doubts are the real saboteur. Socially, it's a minefield. Friends drift because who wants to hang with a couple bickering over thermostat settings? Family holidays? Torture chambers where in-laws poke at old wounds. Your dad's always been a workaholic, hasn't he? Exposing generational flaws you thought you'd outrun. And work bleeds in. My touring schedule meant weeks apart. Her resentment festering into you're never here, revealing my flaw of prioritizing applause over home. Hers, clinging to routines that suffocated my chaos-loving soul. These external pressures don't create the cracks, they widen them, forcing you to adapt or implode. Yet the real gut punch is the emotional core, the insecurities that whisper you're broken. Marriage demands you voice them. I feel like a failure when, or I'm scared to leave because it's terrifying, this baring of the soft underbelly. Brené Brown talks about it like it's courage incarnate, but in the trenches it's more like handing over a loaded gun and saying, please don't shoot. I once admitted to my ex that my success felt like a scam, that I was one bad review from crumbling. She listened, then unloaded, her fear that she'd lost herself in motherhood, become invisible. We sat there, flaws flayed open, and for a second, it bonded us. Two wounded animals licking each other's gashes. But other times, it backfired. Her vulnerability triggered my defensiveness. Mine her exhaustion. Why can't you just be happy? She'd say, exposing her flaw of emotional labor overload. Why can't you just support me? I'd retort, revealing my neediness. And the vulnerability stress model, this is where adaptation kicks in, or fails. High neuroticism amps the drama, economic hits or life transitions turn quirks into quarrels. Studies show hostile processes from this exposure lead to depression, functional impairment, the whole spiral. But in lasting marriages, you learn to embrace the mess, not fix it. God, no one's fixing toenail clippings on the nightstand. Accept it. You joke about it. Hey, your snoring's my white noise now. You communicate without weapons. That bugs me. That bugs me because it reminds me of my dad. Therapy helps, if you're not too stubborn like me, who waited till the divorce papers were inked to try. Friends who make it. They turn exposure into intimacy. One buddy's wife has this laugh like a hyena on helium. He used to cringe. Now he starts stories with, and then she cackles like a banshee. Love that shit. His flaw. Jealousy from past betrayals. Hers. Trust issues from a shitty ex. They expose, discuss, adapt. It's not pretty, it's human. Health scares accelerated too. Cancer diagnosis, a heart episode. Suddenly, flaws aren't abstract. My divorce spared us that, but friends who've endured, they say it reframes everything. The partner's laziness becomes cherished rest after chemo. Your control freak tendency is a lifeline in uncertainty. Exposure shifts from threat to tether. Aging amplifies the absurdity. By 50, you're both creaky, forgetful, bodies failing in tandem. Flaws that once sparked fights, her endless lists, his video game binges, become comforts. You expose the big ones. Regrets, unfulfilled dreams. I wanted to travel, but kids. I wanted to write that book, but life. And instead of blame, you hold space. Because you've seen each other's worst and chosen anyway. The miracle in all this? No, not despite the exposure, but because of it. Sticking around means embracing the unfixable, their road rage that mirrors your anxiety, your sarcasm that wounds like her silence. It's forgiving the flaws you can't unsee, turning vulnerabilities into vows renewed. Society sells polished partnerships, but real marriage is gritty, scarred, alive with the truth that we're all just trying. And that rawness. If you lean in, you find something deeper than perfection. Belonging, flaws and all, Doc. When you're 25 and in love, sex is basically a competitive sport with no referees. You're trying to set world records for creativity, endurance, and noise complaints from the neighbors. You're doing it on balconies and elevators, in the back of a Honda Civic that still smells like the Taco Bell you ate an hour ago. You're inventing positions that require yoga certification and a safe word. You're high-fiving each other afterward like you just won the Super Bowl of orgasms. Everything is urgent, cinematic, and slightly dangerous. You're convinced this is how it will always be because your dick is 25 and your hormones are doing cocaine. You think, this is us. This is our thing. We're the couple that still fucks like porn stars when we're 80. Then reality shows up with a clipboard and a smirk. Year one of marriage. Still pretty solid. You're doing it 4 or 5 times a week. Sometimes twice in one night if somebody brought home Thai food and a decent bottle of wine. You're still experimenting. You bought the Kama Sutra on a whim and actually opened it. You're using the kitchen counter for something other than chopping onions. You're proud. You're smug. You look at older couples and think, poor bastards. They probably schedule it on Google Calendar and fall asleep halfway through. Year 3. The first real dip. You're tired. One of you got promoted, the other one's studying for some certification, and suddenly the only thing you're doing 4 times a week is arguing about whose turn it is to buy toilet paper. Sex drops to once a week, maybe twice if it's a holiday and nobody has to set an alarm. You start noticing that foreplay has been replaced by a negotiation that sounds suspiciously like a hostage situation. If you rub my back for 5 minutes, I'll consider letting you near my boobs. You still want each other, but wanting and actually doing it are now 2 different zip codes. Year 5. Kids arrive. We're a dog that thinks 5:30 a.m. is party time. Or both. Doesn't matter. The point is, your bedroom now contains more bodily fluids that aren't related to sex than ones that are. You have a toddler who can pick locks, a baby monitor that broadcasts every creak, and a libido that's been body slammed into a coma. Sex becomes a tactical mission requiring military precision. Wait until both kids are unconscious, tiptoe past the floorboard that squeaks like a dying goose. Pray nobody wakes up with a nightmare about the vacuum cleaner. You get 15 minutes tops. Tops. You spend the first 5 just trying to remember how legs work. You finish, high five quietly, and one of you immediately falls asleep with their mouth open, snoring like a broken chainsaw. The other one lies there thinking, well, that was efficient. And that's when the real evolution begins. You stop chasing the Olympic sex of your 20s, and you settle into something that looks, from the outside, like surrender. But it's not surrender. It's a goddamn metamorphosis. You go from acrobatics to archaeology. You're no longer trying to blow each other's minds. You're trying to find the 1 square inch of skin that still responds when you're both half dead. You know exactly where to touch, exactly how much pressure, exactly how long it takes because you've had 15 years of trial and error. It's not fireworks anymore. It's a well-worn path through the woods that you could walk blindfolded. And weirdly, that's hot in its own way. There's something filthy and beautiful about knowing someone's body so well that you can get them off in 4 minutes flat when the kid's napping and the oven timer is about to go off. It's not romantic in the candlelit, rose petal sense, but it's intimate as hell. You also develop a sense of humor, or you die. You have to! Because nothing kills arousal faster than realism, and marriage serves realism by the truckload. You're trying to get in the mood and she farts. Not a cute little squeak, a full-on tuba solo that lingers like it's paying rent. 10 years earlier, you would have been horrified. Now you both lose it laughing so hard you have to stop because your stomach's hurt. You try again 5 minutes later, and it's better because you're relaxed, because you're not pretending to be porn stars anymore. You're just 2 idiots who love each other and happen to smell like farts right now. Positions change too. Gone are the days of standing up against the wall, or anything that requires core strength and a willingness to pull a hamstring. Now it's mostly missionary, maybe spooning if somebody's back isn't acting up. You've both accepted that the headboard banging against the wall is no longer a badge of honor. It's a noise complaint waiting to happen. You've discovered that the most erotic thing in the world is when one of you whispers, "Lock the door," because that means you actually have 8 uninterrupted minutes. 8, you can do a lot in 8 minutes when you've stopped caring about the Olympics and started caring about the connection. Frequency becomes a joke you tell each other. You'll be brushing your teeth and one of you goes, "Hey, remember when we used to do it so much? I had to ice my junk." And the other one snorts mouthwash out their nose. You keep a mental tally, sometimes not out of resentment, but out of sheer amusement. Sheer amusement. It's been 11 days. New record? Anna, remember that February when the baby had RSV? 23 days. We're amateurs. You're not mad about it. You're too tired to be mad? You've redirected all that sexual energy into other things. Building a life, raising tiny humans who will one day hate you, binge-watching shows where everyone is still having Olympic sex because it's television and nobody has a toddler. And here's the part nobody tells you. The sex actually gets better in some ways. Not the athletic part. Fuck no. But the trust part. You're not performing anymore. You're not worried about what you look like from behind or whether your stomach is making weird noises. You've seen each other throw up from the flu, cry during arguments. Shit yourselves a little on vacation in Mexico. Nothing's off limits. So when you do have sex, it's raw in a way the early stuff never was. You're not trying to impress. You're trying to feel something real for 5 goddamn minutes in a life that's nothing but schedules and responsibilities. And when it works, when you both get there, at the same time after years of knowing exactly what button to push and when, it's not just an orgasm. It's a tiny rebellion against the universe that keeps trying to exhaust you into zombies. You also invent your own language around it. Quickies become a drive-bys. Morning sex, if it ever happens, is a miracle sex sub because it requires both kids to sleep past 6:30 a.m., which is roughly the likelihood of winning the lottery while being struck by lightning. You have code words. A Netflix and chill stopped meaning anything sexual around 2017 and started meaning, oh, we're definitely falling asleep on the couch by 9:15. But you'll be in the kitchen doing dishes and one of you will just say, a garage? And the other one knows exactly what that means. 5 minutes in the back seat of the minivan while the kids are zoned out on Blue Eye. It's ridiculous. It's undignified. It's perfect. You stop keeping score the way single people think you do. You're not mad that it's Tuesday and nobody's touched anybody's genitals since Saturday. You're just happy Tuesday happened and nobody's in the hospital. Desire becomes this background hum instead of a screaming siren. Sometimes you'll be sitting on the couch, her feet in your lap, and you'll realize you're both quietly turned on but too lazy to do anything about it. So you just sit there in that delicious tension, smirking at each other like you share the world's dirtiest secret. That's foreplay now. That's enough. And every once in a while, the stars align. The kids are at grandma's. You've both had 2 glasses of wine, but not 3. Somebody took a shower. You put on music that isn't the Frozen soundtrack. And suddenly you're 28 again for 45 glorious minutes. You go slow. You laugh when somebody's knee cracks. You don't rush. You remember why you started this whole thing in the first place. And when it's over, you lie there sweaty and tangled. And one of you says, oh, we still got it. And the other one answers, yeah, but tomorrow it's back to drive-bys. And you both laugh until you can't breathe. That's the miracle. Not that the sex stays the same. It can't, unless you're willing to die at 35 from sheer exhaustion. The miracle is that it changes into something you never expected but end up liking more. It's less about proving how hot you are, and more about reminding each other you're still here, still choosing this, still capable of making the other person's legs shake even when life is doing its best to break you. It's comfort sex, survival sex, middle finger to the universe sex. It's 2 people who've seen every possible version of each other, naked, crying, sick, angry, old, and still think, yeah, I'd hit that. Not because it's perfect, but because it's yours, kids. Jesus' age. Christ on a pogo stick, kids. You think you're ready. You read the books, you watched the YouTube videos of people calmly narrating their birth stories like they're reading a grocery list. You even practiced swaddling a goddamn burrito, because some influencer said it was the same thing. You sit there in your tidy little 2-person bubble, having sex on the kitchen floor at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday just because you can. You look at each other with those smug, horny eyes and say, let's make a person. Like it's a fun weekend project, like ordering a pizza with extra toppings. Yeah, let's do it. How hard can it be? Cut to 9 months later. You're in a delivery room that smells like fear and bleach. Your wife is screaming that she's going to murder you with her bare hands, and some nurses yelling a push. Like it's a fucking black and CrossFit class. Then this slimy, purple, furious alien slides out, lets out a wail that could shatter glass. And your entire life detonates in slow motion. That first night home, you're both sitting on the couch at 3:47 a.m. covered in spit up, holding a screaming potato that somehow weighs 8 pounds but feels like it's sucking your soul directly out through your eyeballs. And you look at each other and realize, we have made a terrible, irreversible mistake, and there is no return policy. Gone. Date nights. The closest thing you get to a date is when you both eat cold chicken nuggets, standing over the sink while the baby finally mercifully passes out for 23 minutes. You used to text each other filthy things from across the room at parties. Now your text thread is 97% to did you biters? A size 2 or 3? I don't know, the exploding shit is coming out the sides again. You try to remember the last time you kissed with tongue and come up blank sometime around the second trimester. Sleep becomes a currency more valuable than Bitcoin. You start doing shift work like you're guarding a military base. I've got 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. You take 2 to 6. You hand the baby off like it's a live grenade, whispering a good luck. Don't die before collapsing face first into a pillow that smells like sour milk. Yeah. You dream about sleep, the way junkies dream about their next hit. You fantasize about hotel rooms, not for sex. God, no, just for the idea of lying down horizontally without someone attached to a nipple or screaming directly into your cerebellum. Your sex life flatlines so hard it needs a defibrillator. You're both so touched out that the idea of another human being putting their hands on you makes you want to cry. She's healing from having her vagina turned into a war zone. You're terrified of hurting her. And the baby has a sixth sense for the exact moment one of you thinks about initiating anything. You'll be on the couch, finally both awake at the same time. Kids miraculously down, and you lean in for a kiss that might actually lead somewhere. And boom, there's a blood-curdling scream from the nursery like someone's being murdered by a smoke detector. You look at each other, sigh, and one of you trudges off while the other stares at the ceiling, wondering if monks take married applicants. Your conversations devolve into grunts and logistics. Your turn. I did the last one. No, you didn't. I did the 3 a.m. and the 5 a.m. You're fine, but I'm tapping out at 7. I have that meeting. You start keeping score like it's the goddamn Olympics of martyrdom. You weaponize exhaustion. You develop telepathy, but only for negative shit. You can sense from across the house that the other person is about to lose their mind because the toddler just smeared poop on the dog again. Your house turns into a biohazard zone. There are bottles sterilizing in every pot, laundry that breeds faster than you can wash it, and a permanent smell of sour milk and desperation baked into the walls. You find yourself Googling, is it normal for a baby to projectile vomit this much? At 4 a.m. while rocking a screaming infant and crying silently because you haven't slept more than 90 minutes in a row since the Obama administration. You stop recognizing yourself. The woman who used to wear heels and lipstick now lives in stained yoga pants and a nursing bra that looks like it survived Fallujah. The guy who used to hit the gym and have opinions about craft beer now has a permanent milk stain on every shirt and considers showering a major life accomplishment. You catch glimpses of each other in the mirror and think, who the fuck are these zombies and why are they raising my child? And then, just when you think you can't possibly sink any lower, the kid starts walking. Which means your house is now a death trap, and you spend every waking moment sprinting after a tiny drunk dictator who wants to lick electrical outlets and throw themselves downstairs for sport. Your cardio improves dramatically, but not in the fun of we're training for a 5K way. More in the I'm being chased by a velociraptor way. You fight about stupid shit because you're too tired to fight about the real shit. You fight about whose turn it is to unload the dishwasher, about who forgot to buy wipes again, about the fact that one of you left a dirty diaper on the changing table for 3 days, because neither wanted to be the one to deal with it. You say things you don't mean because sleep deprivation is a form of temporary insanity. You apologize later with the sincerity of two people who know tomorrow will be exactly the same. Your social life dies a slow, painful death. Slow, painful death. Friends without kids stop inviting you places because you either can't come or you show up looking like you've been held hostage for 6 months. Friends with kids want to talk about sleep training and developmental milestones, and you realize you've become the very people you used to mock. You try to have a conversation that isn't about your children and fail spectacularly. Someone says, "So what's new with you guys?" And you both stare blankly before one of you blurts out, "He finally pooped in the potty." Like it's breaking news. You forget what silence sounds like. Your home is a 24/7 soundtrack of crying, screaming, whining, singing the same 3 lines of AB Shark on repeat until you contemplate driving into a tree just for some peace and quiet. You start having full-blown fantasies about public restrooms because they're the only place you can lock a door and be alone for 3 minutes. Your relationship becomes a hostage negotiation with a tiny terrorist who doesn't speak English, but somehow controls every aspect of your life. Bedtime is a 2-hour psychological warfare campaign involving books, songs, water requests, monster checks, and finally just lying on the floor next to the crib pretending to be asleep until they pass out from exhaustion. You and your partner take turns being the good cop and the bad cop, except both of you are bad cops because you're both at the end of your rope. You start tagging in and out like wrestlers. One of you takes the kids to the park, so the other can have 45 minutes of pretending to be a human being who isn't covered in snot. You come home, and the house looks like a bomb went off, but you don't even care because you got to drink a cup of coffee while it was still hot. Hot coffee becomes the new foreplay. You develop a new kind of intimacy born from shared trauma. You lock eyes across a room full of chaos while one kid is having a meltdown because their strawberry is the wrong shape and the other one is trying to eat a Lego. And in that moment, you communicate entire paragraphs with just a look. "I love you. I'm sorry. We're in this together. Kill me." You celebrate the tiniest victories like you've won the lottery. The first time both kids nap at the same time. The first time you manage to have sex without someone walking in. The first time you leave the house without a diaper bag that weighs more than the children themselves. You high-five over a clean kitchen floor like you've summited Everest. And somehow in the middle of all this madness, something miraculous happens. You realize you're a team. A battered, exhausted, slightly insane team, but a team. You've been through the trenches together. You've seen each other at your absolute worst. Covered in puke, crying in the shower because you're so tired you can't remember your own name, screaming at each other over nothing because everything feels like everything, and you're still here. You still choose each other every day, even when choosing each other means one of you has to change the diaper that looks like a crime scene while the other one holds the kid down. You start to find the humor again. You laugh until you cry when your toddler asks, "Why Daddy's penis looks like a sausage?" You collapse into hysterical giggles when the baby shits so explosively it hits the wall. You develop inside jokes that no one else will ever understand. Like calling 7 p.m. the witching hour or referring to yourselves as hostages. You rediscover each other in tiny stolen moments. A quick kiss in the kitchen while the kids are distracted by cartoons. Falling asleep on the couch together after the longest day in human history. Still holding hands. The way you can communicate an entire battle plan with just a raised eyebrow. When one of the kids is about to do something catastrophic. The kids hijack every aspect of your life, yes. They turn your romantic partnership into a logistics company with occasional emotional breakdowns. But they also give you something you never had before. A shared purpose bigger than both of you. You're building something together. You're building something together that isn't just a relationship, it's a family. And as insane as it is, as exhausting as it is, as much as it sometimes feels like you've made the worst decision of your lives, you look at those tiny humans who are equal parts the person you love most in the world, and you think, yeah, we did this. We're doing this together. That's the part no one warns you about. Kids don't just hijack your romance, they redefine it. They turn it into something messier, louder, more chaotic, and infinitely deeper. You're not just lovers anymore. You're co-conspirators, battle buddies, partners in the truest sense of the word. You've seen each other broken and remade 1,000 times over, and you keep choosing to stay in the fight. The romance doesn't die. It mutates. It becomes the way you wordlessly hand each other coffee when one of you is at the end of your rope. It becomes the way you celebrate the fact that you both survived another day without killing anyone. It becomes the way you look at each other when your kid says something hilarious or kind or brilliant and you think, holy shit, we made that together. That's the real love story. Not the candlelit dinners or the spontaneous weekend getaways. Though those are nice when they happen once every 5 years. The real one is the 3 a.m. diaper changes and the emergency room visits, and the days when you both want to run away, but you don't because the other one is still there. Still fighting. Still choosing this beautiful, terrible, perfect chaos with you. Every single day in a marriage is 1,000 tiny elections. You wake up, and the first ballot is already on the table. Who's making coffee? Who's pretending not to hear the baby crying? Who's going to be the one to scrape the mystery crust off the high chair tray before breakfast? Nobody rings a bell. Nobody hands you a sticker that says, I've voted. It's just life quietly sliding the ballot under your nose and whispering, choose asshole, choose right now. And that's what marriage actually is. An endless series of micro decisions, most of them so small they feel stupid to even notice. Until you realize those stupid little choices are the rebar holding the whole gone building together. You don't stay married for 25 years because you had one big romantic moment where the violin swelled and you promised forever. You stay married because every single day, sometimes 5 or 6 times before lunch, you both looked at the available options and picked whose set of a may. Take the toilet paper roll. I swear to God, this is the dumbest hill couples die on. But it's also a perfect little referendum. It runs out. One of you notices. Option A, replace it like a civilized human who was raised by wolves with manners. Option B, leave the empty cardboard tube spinning there like a middle finger to the next person who has to shit. 2 choices. And whichever one you pick is a vote cast in the ongoing election of whether this marriage is a team sport or a selfish solo act. Do it enough times the wrong way, and suddenly you're in a screaming match at 10 p.m. over a cardboard tube, but what you're really fighting about is the tally of the last 4,382 tiny votes that all said, "Ah, fuck you, figure it out yourself," or the trash. Same deal. The bag is full, it stinks, it's leaking some liquid that might be soup from 2019. One of you has to take it out. You can pretend you didn't see it. You can walk past it 12 times hoping the other person caves. Or you can grab it, wrestle it down 3 flights of stairs while it drips on your shoe, come back inside without expecting a medal. That's a vote. And if both of you keep voting, I'll do it. Instead of a not my problem, the house doesn't turn into a landfill and nobody ends up sleeping on the couch over garbage juice, dishes, laundry. Who answers the toddler at 5:47 a.m. when they're standing next to your bed whispering, "I'm hungry," like a tiny serial killer? Who texts during the day just to say a thinking about you when literally nothing has happened except you saw a dumb meme? Who stops at the store for milk even though it's out of the way? Who pauses their show so the other person doesn't miss the plot twist? Who says "I'm sorry" first even when they only feel 12% wrong? Who lets the other one have the good pillow even though their neck has been killing them for 3 days? These aren't grand gestures. They're pennies dropped in a jar, and after 20 years, the jar is so heavy you can't lift it anymore. But it's full of the only currency that actually matters. You know what unglamorous teamwork looks like in real time? It's 6:12 p.m. on a Wednesday. One kid has a fever, the other one is melting down because you cut the grilled cheese into squares instead of triangles, a capital offense. The dog just threw up on the rug. And the smoke alarm is going off because somebody forgot the oven was preheating to 450 for pizza. You and your spouse lock eyes across the chaos, and without a single word, you split the workload like Navy SEAL. One grabs the thermometer and Motrin, the other scoops up the screaming grilled cheese criminal. Somebody hits the smoke alarm with a broom. Somebody else is already on their knees with paper towels and nature's miracle for the dog puke. 10 minutes later, the fever's down. The new grilled cheese is triangles. The dog is banished. The alarm is quiet. And you both collapse on the couch eating burnt pizza off a paper towel because every plate is dirty. Nobody got thanked. Nobody posted it on Instagram. But you just pulled off a forefront crisis without killing anyone or each other. That's the Super Bowl, baby. That's the part nobody claps for. People think long marriages run on love. Wrong. Love is the fuel, but the engine is this constant, boring daily negotiation where both of you keep agreeing, sometimes through clenched teeth, that the other person's needs are not an inconvenience. They're part of the job description you signed up for when you said, "I do." You don't feel like it every day. Some days you hate their face and the sound of their chewing and the way they breathe. Some days the kindest thing you can do is take the trash out just to get 5 minutes away from them. But you still do it. That's the vote. That's the miracle. Money is the big one everybody warns you about, but it's still just a pile of tiny decisions. Who moves money from savings to cover the ER bill when the kid splits their chin open doing Parker off the couch? Who cancels their own birthday plans so the other one can have the overtime shift that keeps the lights on? Who eats the shitty leftovers so the other person gets the good lunch tomorrow? Who says, "We can't afford the vacation this year, but we can afford to keep our family afloat, so that's what we're doing"? That's not sacrifice in the movie sense. That's just another Tuesday vote, whereas beats a me again. Sickness is the same way. One of you gets the stomach flu and spends 48 hours praying to the porcelain god. The other one is now a single parent plus nurse plus hazmat team. You're cleaning vomit at 2 a.m. while simultaneously keeping the kids alive and texting your boss that you'll be late tomorrow. You're exhausted, you're grossed out, you haven't slept, and you still crawl into bed next to the invalid and rub their back, because misery loves company and love loves misery right back. That's a vote that says, in sickness and in health isn't poetry. It's a fucking shift schedule, and I'm clocking in. Even the fights are negotiations. You scream about something stupid. The Amazon box is piling up, the way they never refill the ice tray. And underneath the yelling is the same question. Are we still a team, or are we keeping score now? The couples who last figure out how to fight without burning the team jersey. You say your piece. You listen to theirs even when it makes your skin crawl. And then you both go, okay, how do we fix this so tomorrow isn't war? Sometimes the fix is one person saying, I was an asshole. I'll try harder. Sometimes it's both of you realizing the system is broken and you need a new one. Like, maybe you just get the goddamn automatic ice maker. Jeff Bezos can afford it. But you fix it together because abandoning ship over ice cubes is insane when you've already survived childbirth and tax season. Sex becomes a negotiation too, obviously. Who's too tired? Who's faking a headache? Who's willing to power through even though they'd rather mainline caffeine? Some nights the vote is a quick and quiet before someone wakes up. Some nights it's a let's just cuddle. I can't even find my libido with a search party. And sometimes, miraculously, it's both of you looking at each other at 9:03 p.m. and going, hey, kids are asleep. I've got 20 minutes of energy. Let's make bad decisions. Let's make bad decisions. The miracle isn't the sex itself. It's that you still bother negotiating at all instead of just turning away and opening your individual phones to die alone together. The outside world doesn't see any of this. They see the anniversary posts, the vacation photos where everyone's smiling like they didn't have a screaming match in the airport over who forgot the sunscreen. They don't see the 3,842 tiny negotiations that got you to that photo. They don't see the morning you both woke up broke and terrified, but still split the last cup of coffee exactly in half. They don't see the night one kid had croup, and you took shifts walking the hallway bouncing a seal-barking toddler until dawn while the other one slept in 90-minute increments on the couch with one ear open. They don't see the text that just says, I'm proud of you, on a random Thursday because the other person finally finished the project that was eating their soul. That's the part that turns a marriage into concrete instead of just feelings. Feelings come and go like weather. Negotiation is the house you build that the weather has to go through to get to you. Every time you choose to take the trash out, refill the ice tray, change the exploded diaper. Let them have the parking spot closer to the door in the rain. You're pouring another layer of rebar. Do it 10,000 times and nobody can blow that thing down. Not affairs, not money problems, not cancer, not the slow erosion of age. Because the house isn't built on how you felt on your wedding day. It's built on how you voted on a random Tuesday in 2017 when everything sucked and you still chose us. That's the secret nobody tells you when you're young and stupid and think love is enough. Love is enough. Love is enough. Love is the candidate. The daily negotiation is the election.
And the miracle is that two selfish, tired, flawed idiots keep showing up to the polls every single day for decades and keep marking the same box. Team us. Again. Still, no matter what, resentment is the quiet little roommate you never invited. It moves in on a Tuesday when nobody's looking, carrying one small suitcase labeled "you never," and another one labeled "you always." At first, you barely notice. It sleeps on the couch, eats your leftovers, leaves wet towels on the bathroom floor of your brain. You tell yourself it's temporary. You're both just tired. You'll deal with it later. But later never comes because resentment is a hoarder. It starts collecting. It starts with something tiny. She asked you 3 times to take out the recycling and you forgot because you were deep in a YouTube spiral about whether the moon landing was faked. The bins sit there for another week. She drags them to the curb herself in the rain. Nothing is said out loud, but a little post-it note appears on the inside of her skull. He doesn't give a shit. That's the first item in the suitcase. Then you're at Target and you throw an extra 12-pack of soda in the cart, even though she's been trying to cut sugar and you know it. She sees it, says nothing. Pays for it anyway. Another post-it. He undermines me on purpose. Suitcase is getting heavier. You're late coming home from work again. Not cheating, not drinking, just stuck in traffic. But she's been solo parenting 2 feral raccoons in human suits for 4 hours, and the second you walk in the door, she hands you a screaming toddler and disappears into the bedroom without a word. You think, Jesus, can't I even take my shoes off first? Post it on your side now. She acts like I'm the help. Pretty soon the suitcase won't close. The post-its multiply like mold. You always leave your shoes in the hallway. You never put the lid back on the toothpaste. You always watch your stupid shows with the volume too loud. You never initiate sex anymore. You always make me the bad guy with the kids. You never ask how my day was. You always forget to text when you're running late. You never appreciate anything I do around here. The scary part is that most of these things are technically true. They're not malicious. They're just habits, blindness, exhaustion, the slow drip of human imperfection. Resentment doesn't care about intent. Resentment is a lawyer that only prosecutes. It never defends. It keeps perfect records. It has receipts going back 8 years for that one time you laughed when she tripped on the ice in 2017. And here's the really insidious thing. Resentment is contagious. The more she carries, the more you feel it pressing down on your chest too. You start keeping your own set of post-its. Now you're both walking around with invisible backpacks full of bricks, smiling tightly at each other while secretly calculating who's carrying more weight. You start doing mental math. I did bedtime 4 nights in a row, she only did 3, so I win. She got to take a shower alone twice this week. I haven't showered since Tuesday, so actually I'm the victim here. It's exhausting. It's insane. It's marriage. The bricks get heavier when nobody says anything out loud. Because talking about it. If you bring up the recycling thing, she might cry. Or worse, list every single thing you've ever done wrong since the Clinton administration. If she brings up the sex thing, you might get defensive and say something stupid like, oh, well, maybe if you weren't so tired all the time. And then you're in a fight that lasts 3 days and nobody wins. So you both shut up and let the bricks stack higher. You develop these elaborate avoidance dances. You take the trash out the long way so you don't have to walk past her in the kitchen. She starts doing laundry at 11 p.m. so she doesn't have to sit on the couch next to you. You're living in the same house, but you've built separate emotional bunkers with moats full of unsaid shit. Some couples let it calcify. The resentment turns into plaque. It hardens. You stop touching each other at all. At all, not even a casual hand on the back, because any contact feels like it comes with a bill attached. That'll be 3 chores and an apology from 2019, please. You sleep on your own sides of the bed with a DMZ of pillows in the middle. You have sex out of obligation, and it feels like filing taxes. You start sentences with a, I guess. I'll just... and a fine, whatever. Do it your way. You fantasize about the freedom of divorce the way prisoners fantasize about the ocean. But the couples who last... they figure out that resentment is a debt that only gets paid when somebody opens their mouth and starts bleeding out loud. It usually starts ugly. One of you finally snaps. Maybe it's over something comically small, like the fact that the yogurt lid wasn't rinsed before it went in the recycling. Again, but the fight detonates like you've been storing dynamite for years because you have. You scream, you cry, you say things that can't be unsaid. You list the post. It's like you're reading indictments in court. And for about 45 minutes, it feels like the marriage is actually ending, like you're watching the house burn down in real time. Then something shifts. One of you, usually the one who's secretly terrified of losing the other, says the scariest sentence in the English language. I've been keeping score and I'm tired. And the other one, if they're not a complete asshole, hears the exhaustion underneath the anger and says, me too. And suddenly the room feels different. The air changes. The bricks start tumbling out of the backpacks and clattering onto the floor between you. You don't fix it all in one night. You can't. Some of the post-its are legitimate grievances that need actual behavioral change. Some of them are just exhaustion masquerading as moral superiority. But you start the process. You make a rule. No new bricks until we deal with the old ones. You schedule the least romantic date in human history. Resentment detox night. You pour wine, you sit on the couch, and you take turns reading the post. It's out loud without interrupting. It's brutal. It's embarrassing. You hear yourself sounding like a petty lunatic and you want to die, but you keep going. And slowly, something miraculous happens. The bricks lose their power when they're named. Sunlight hits the mold and it shrivels. You realize half the shit you were mad about was just miscommunication. She thought you didn't care about the recycling because you never listened when she explained why it upset her. Her dad was a hoarder. The clutter made her skin crawl. You thought she was being controlling because you grew up in a house where nobody gave a shit and chaos felt like freedom. You talk about it like adults for the first time in years. You laugh at how stupid it all sounds when it's finally said out loud. You apologize for things you didn't even realize were hurting the other person. You make a plan. You'll take the bins out every Sunday night, no matter what. She'll text you a gentle reminder on Sunday morning instead of seething in silence. It's not sexy. It's plumbing. But plumbing keeps the house from flooding. You do it again the next month. And the next. You get better at it. You start catching the bricks before they fully form. You develop a shorthand. Hey, I feel a post-it coming on. Can we talk before it sticks? You learn that I'm fine. Actually means I'm carrying 12 bricks and my back is breaking. You start thanking each other for the invisible labor you used to take for granted. You say I appreciate that you always make the coffee, even though I never say thank you. And it feels awkward as hell, but it works like Drano on the pipes. Sex comes back too weirdly. Because resentment is the world's most effective cockblock. Once the bricks are gone, touching each other doesn't feel like paying a debt anymore. Feels like choosing. You start small. A hand on the small of the back when you pass in the hallway. A kiss that isn't just a reflex. You have the kind of sex that happens because you want to, not because you're afraid of what it means if you don't. It's not the porn star sex of your 20s. It's better. It's two people who just emptied their emotional hoarding piles and suddenly have room to breathe. You're never fully cured. Resentment is a weed. It grows back if you don't keep pulling, but you get good at spotting the first green shoots. You develop rituals, Sunday night check-ins where you each get 10 minutes of uninterrupted bitching followed by 10 minutes of gratitude. You keep a shared note on your phones called a bricks high, where you drop the little shit before it festers. You laugh about it. You call it a taking out the emotional trash, and you make it as routine as taking out the actual trash. And here's the wild part. Once the resentment is gone, or at least managed, you realize how much energy you were wasting carrying it. You have bandwidth again. You start noticing the good stuff you used to ignore. The way he always warms up her car on cold mornings. You at? The way she still laughs at his dumb jokes, even when she's heard them 1,000 times. The tiny, perfect moments that were always there, but that got buried under the weight of the unsaid. You look around one day and the house is still messy, the kids are still feral, money is still tight, but the air feels lighter. You're not keeping score anymore. You're just living, together, on the same team. The bricks are in a pile outside, and you've decided, for today at least, not to bring any new ones in.
That's the daily miracle. Not that resentment never shows up. It's that you learned how to evict the little bastard before he redecorates the whole place. It picks the lock at 2:14 a.m. while you're lying awake replaying the way she sighed when you forgot to take the chicken out of the freezer again. It tiptoes in wearing your own voice, whispering a single sentence that feels completely reasonable. If she really loved me, she wouldn't do that.
That's all it takes. One sentence, one drop of poison in the well.
You don't even taste it yet.
By morning, the drop has multiplied. You pour coffee and notice the dishes from last night are still in the sink. She was exhausted. Fell asleep on the couch with the baby on her chest. You know this.
You saw it happen. But resentment is already sitting at the table in your head, legs crossed, sipping your coffee saying, AC? She expects you to be the maid. You rinse one plate, slam it into the dishwasher harder than necessary, and the day hasn't even started, but the score is already 1-0. That's how it works. That's how it works.
It's never the big betrayals that kill marriages slowly. It's the slow drip of ordinary Tuesdays. The forgotten thing. The eye roll. The silence that lasts 3 seconds too long. The way he says it's fine when it clearly isn't.
The way she starts every request with, you never, and ends it with a sigh that could power a small city. Each moment is a pebble. Individually, they're nothing. Stack 10,000 of them on your chest over 15 years and suddenly, you can't breathe. The worst part is how justified it feels.
You're not crazy.
You really did ask him 4 times to fix the leaky faucet, and it's still dripping like a metronome counting down to your sanity. You really have been the one getting up with the kids every night for 3 weeks while he just needs to finish this one email.
You really did find the grocery receipt and see he bought the expensive craft beer while you're over here clipping coupons for fucking yogurt.
These aren't hallucinations. These are facts. Resentment hands you the receipts and says, see? You're the reasonable one. You're the martyr.
You're the only adult in this relationship, and you believe it because it's easier than admitting you might be part of the problem too. So you start building the case. You keep a mental file labeled evidence. Every late night, every canceled plan, every time she chose the kids over you, every time he chose work over her, every sarcastic comment, every weaponized whatever, the file gets thicker. You review it at stoplights. You update it while brushing your teeth. You fall asleep rehearsing opening statements for the trial that will never actually happen because nobody ever says, let's sit down and read the entire indictment out loud. Instead, you just marinate in it. The marriage becomes a courtroom where both of you are prosecutor, judge, jury, and prisoner all at once. Your body keeps the score too. Your neck is constantly tight. Your jaw aches from clenching. You get headaches that no amount of Advil touches. You startle when she touches you because even affection now feels like a transaction. What does he want now? You have sex. It's fine technically, but you're both somewhere else. Mentally cataloging grievances while going through the motions. Orgasm happens or it doesn't. And either way, it feels like checking a box instead of connecting. You stop flirting. You stop saying goodnight. You start sleeping diagonally to maximize the distance between your bodies in a king-size bed that suddenly feels like a continent. You weaponize competence. She becomes Superwoman, handles the pediatrician, the bills, the school forms, the birthday parties, the emotional labor of remembering which kid hates crusts and which one is allergic to strawberries. Every time she does it perfectly. It's another brick in your wall. See? She doesn't need me. She just needs a sperm donor and a paycheck. Meanwhile, he becomes the fun dad who swoops in with ice cream and wrestling matches while she's the nagging hag who enforces bedtime. Or it flips. He's the one holding the family together while she's checked out, scrolling her phone, dreaming of a life where someone else remembers to buy toilet paper for once. Either way, the one carrying the load uses it as both shield and sword. Look at everything I do translated means, look how little you do. The kids feel it before they have words for it. They start triangulating. Oh, mommy said you're tired, daddy, are you mad? They learn to pit you against each other because they can smell the rot. They act out more because tension is contagious and children are emotional sponges with no filter. Bedtimes get harder. Tantrums get bigger. Everyone is exhausted and nobody can figure out why because nobody is saying the real thing. We're drowning in unsaid shit and it's poisoning the air.
You start having imaginary conversations. In the shower, you win every argument you never actually had.
You deliver the perfect monologue that finally makes her see how selfish she's been. You rehearse the calm, devastating way. You'll tell him you're done. You picture walking out and how free you'll feel, and how sorry he'll be, and how much better life will be when someone finally appreciates you.
Then you step out of the shower, towel off, and go make lunches like nothing happened. The fantasy is the only place you get relief, because in real life you're still too scared, too tired, too invested, or too broke to leave. You try passive-aggressive fixes.
You leave articles about emotional labor open on the laptop. You will forget to do the one chore that drives her insane just to see if she notices. You give the silent treatment for 3 days and call it a space.
You have makeup sex that feels amazing for 12 hours, and then the same bricks are right back where they started, because nothing was actually said.
You tell your friends the edited version, and they nod sympathetically, and you feel validated for 5 minutes until you realize you just recruited them to your side of the war. Your pretending isn't happening. Some couples never dig out. The resentment calcifies into contempt.
The four horsemen move in permanently. Criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, contempt. The marriage becomes a Cold War with better Wi-Fi. You stay together for the kids, for the money, for the fear of starting over at 45 with a duffel bag in a studio apartment that smells like old pizza. You become roommates who occasionally hate fuck, and mostly just orbit each other like burnt-out satellites. But some couples hit the bottom and bounce. It usually starts with one person saying the scariest 6 words in marriage. I'm angry and I don't know why. Or I'm keeping score and I'm tired. Or I'll love you, but I don't like you right now, and that scares me. The first person to say it out loud risks everything. They're handing the other person a loaded gun and saying, here's every reason you should leave me. Most of the time, the gun doesn't fire. Most of the time, the other person exhales like they've been holding their breath for 5 years. Says, thank God, me too. Then the ugly, glorious purge begins. You sit on the kitchen floor at midnight, and you dump the suitcase. You read every receipt, you cry, you yell. You say things that can't be unsaid. You hear things that feel like knives. You realize half the shit you were mad about was projection and the other half was legitimate pain that got ignored until it festered. You apologize for things you didn't even know you did. You forgive things you swore you never would. You make lists. Here's what I need. Here's what I can give. Here's what has to change or we're done. You schedule the least romantic recurring calendar event in history. Weekly State of the Union, no kids, no phones, no bullshit. You learn new language. Instead of you never, you say I feel. Instead of you always, you say when this happens. I make up this story that. You learn to say I was an asshole about the chicken. I'm sorry within the same hour instead of letting it rot for 3 days. You learn to say I'm at capacity. I need help before you explode. You learn that I'm fine is no longer a loud vocabulary. You build systems because feelings are unreliable. You divide labor on a Google Doc that nobody is allowed to passive-aggressively edit. You have a no new bricks rule. If something bothers you, you have 48 hours to bring it up respectfully, or you let it go forever. You start a swear jar for eye rolls. You institute a daily 10-second hug minimum because touch starvation is real and resentment hates oxytocin. You Starson. It's not fixed overnight. Some weeks you backslide hard. Some fights still end with someone sleeping on the couch. But the suitcase is open now. The bricks are named. The poison has a vent. Slowly, incrementally, the air clears. You start touching each other again without calculating interest rates. You laugh at stupid shit. You have sex because you want to, not because you're proving a point. You realize the person you've been mentally divorcing for 3 years is actually the same idiot you fell in love with. Just buried under a landfill of unsaid crap you both helped create. You never get to zero resentment. That's impossible. You're human. You're tired. You're selfish sometimes. But you get to a place where the suitcase is small enough to carry instead of dragging behind you like a dead body. You get to a place where the default assumption is goodwill instead of malice. You get to a place where I'm pissed leads to let's fix this instead of a let's see who can hurt worse. That's the part people don't talk about.
The miracle isn't that resentment never shows up. The miracle is that two people looked at the rotting pile of bricks they'd built together and decided today to start cleaning it up. One honest conversation at a time. One forgiven slight at a time. When I see you, I'm sorry, I'll try harder at a time. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the house stops feeling like a courtroom and starts feeling like a home again. You start out riding that high. No one to answer to. The whole bed to yourself. You can eat cereal for dinner at 2 a.m. while watching documentaries about serial killers, and nobody gives you that look like you just murdered their childhood dreams. You go out, you flirt, you have sex that feels like winning a prize because it's new, and nobody knows you snore like a chainsaw yet. You tell your married friends, man, you guys are missing out, and for the first couple months you actually believe it. Then the novelty wears off and the silence moves in. At first it's nice, quiet, peaceful. You come home, drop your keys, and there's no immediate interrogation about why you're late or whose turn it is to unload the dishwasher. You sit on the couch and it's just you and the sound of the refrigerator humming. You think, this is living. You order Thai food and eat it straight out of the carton while watching whatever you want at, whatever volume you want. You jerk off in the living room because why the hell not? Freedom tastes like pad ki mao and not having to pretend you care about someone else's day. Week 3 rolls around and the quiet starts to feel different, not peaceful anymore. Empty. You realize the apartment doesn't actually make any noise unless you make it. You talk to Alexa just to hear another human voice, even if it's a robot that keeps trying to sell you light bulbs. You text friends what's up at 9 p.m. on a Friday, and nobody answers because they're all at home putting kids to bed or arguing with their spouse about whose family they're spending Christmas with. You scroll dating apps and everyone looks shiny and perfect. And you swipe right a few times. And maybe you even go on a date. But it's weird, because nobody knows how you take your coffee or that you secretly cry at the end of Futurama or that you leave one specific cabinet door open because closing. It makes a noise that drives you insane. You start having full-blown conversations with the TV characters because they answer back, sort of. You say right out loud when the detective finally figures out who the killer is. You tell the contestants on reality shows they're idiots. You realize you've become the person you used to feel sorry for in movies. The sad single guy yelling at the screen in an apartment that smells faintly of old takeout and unwashed laundry. You go to the grocery store and buy one of everything. One chicken breast. One potato. One sad little yogurt that expires in 3 days because buying the big tub feels like admitting defeat. You stand in the checkout line behind a couple arguing over whether they need 2% or whole milk for the baby, and you hate them. But you also kind of want to hug them, because at least they're arguing about something that matters to both of them. You get home and realize you forgot toilet paper again, because nobody was there to remind you. And you stand in the bathroom doing the math on how many socks you're willing to sacrifice before you go back out. You get sick, and it's a whole different level of pathetic. You have the flu and you're burning up, and there's nobody to bring you water or rub your back or even notice you're dying. You text I'm sick to a group chat and get a bunch of thumbs up emojis and one feel better. And that's it. You drag yourself to the kitchen wrapped in a blanket like a burrito and heat up canned soup that tastes like salt and regret, and you eat it on the couch watching the same episode of The Office for the 4th time because it's the one where Jim and Pam finally get together and you need something to, Feel less like a loser. You try to date and it's exhausting. Everyone is performing. Everyone is on their best behavior. You have to explain your entire backstory every single time. You have to pretend you're mysterious and interesting instead of just a guy who cried last night because the pizza delivery guy called him a buddy, and it was the nicest thing anyone had said to him all week. You have sex, and it's good, but then they leave, and the bed is cold on both sides, and you lie there staring at the ceiling, realizing you just let a relative stranger see you naked and vulnerable, and now they're gone. And you still don't have anyone to talk to about the weird dream you had about your teeth falling out. You start doing the math. You realize that being single means every problem is your problem. The flat tire at 11 p.m. The tax forms you don't understand. The spider in the bathtub that's clearly plotting your death. There's no tag team partner. There's no, hey babe, can you look at this weird rash? There's just you and your increasingly deranged Google search history at 3 a.m. You go to weddings, and everyone asks when you're settling down and you laugh it off, but inside you're screaming, because you would kill to have someone to argue with about whose turn it is to take out the trash. If it'd take out the trash. If it's a... Meant you didn't have to come home to silence every night. You watch your married friends complain about their spouses, and you want to shake them because at least someone cares enough to be annoyed by their existence. You start talking to your houseplants. You name them. You apologize when you forget to water Kevin. You tell Susan about your day because she's the only one who listens without interrupting. You catch yourself in the mirror having a full conversation with no one, and you realize this is how cat ladies are made. Except you're a grown man who's seriously considering getting a dog just so someone is excited to see you when you walk in the door. You try to fill the void with stuff. New hobbies. Gym memberships you never use. A PlayStation. A bidet because why not treat yourself? You buy plants and then kill them because you forget they exist. You adopt a cat and it hates you. You join a rec league softball team, and everyone there is either 22 or divorced, and bitter, and you realize you don't fit anywhere anymore. You have a nightmare that you die alone, and nobody finds you for weeks. And the only reason anyone notices is because the super smells something. And when they break in, they find you half-eaten by your own cat. And your last Google search was how to know if you're having a heart attack or just anxiety. You wake up sweating and seriously consider texting your ex just to hear a human voice that knows you. You start to understand why old people get married again so fast after their spouses die. It's not about sex or even love sometimes. It's about having a witness. Someone who knows you put the milk in the cupboard when you're tired. Someone who notices when you don't come home. Someone who will fight with you about the thermostat, but also bring you soup when you're sick, and hold your hand when the test results come back bad. You realize the married version of crazy. Coming home to someone who's mad you forgot to buy milk again is actually saner than the single version. Coming home to no one and realizing you forgot to buy milk. And there's no one to blame but yourself, and no one to laugh about it with. You look at your married friends who are exhausted and fighting and covered in kid puke, and you stop feeling superior. You start feeling jealous. Not of the fights, or the minivans, or the mortgage. Jealous of the shared madness, the inside jokes. Do you remember when the fact that someone somewhere gives a shit whether you make it home safe or not? You stop romanticizing freedom and start seeing it for what it is sometimes, a fancy word for alone. You realize that marriage, even the messy, annoying, soul-crushing version, is still two people agreeing to be each other's emergency contact. Two people saying, fine, I'll put up with your weird snoring, and your inability to replace a toilet paper roll if you put up with my anxiety, and my tendency to leave dishes in the sink. Two people deciding that the alternative, coming home to silence and dying alone with only the cat as a witness, is actually worse. You get it. The shared madness wins. Not because it's perfect, because it's shared. It's not the sexy kind of stubborn, the I will fight for us montage with swelling music. It's the mule-headed, teeth-grinding, I refuse to blink first kind that looks insane from the outside and feels like survival on the inside. It's two people standing in the wreckage of a fight that started over whether the Christmas lights should be multicolored or all white, screaming I'm not giving in on this one, while secretly knowing the lights don't matter at all. What matters is that neither of you is willing to be the first to tap out, because tapping out has started to feel like losing the whole war. Long marriages aren't built on compromise. Compromise is for reasonable people who haven't been together long enough to hate each other's breathing patterns yet. Long marriages are built on stubbornness disguised as commitment. It's deciding, over and over for decades, that leaving is more work than staying. It's looking at the exit door during year 7, when the baby hasn't slept in 147 days, and the credit cards are maxed, and your spouse just said the single most hurtful thing anyone has ever said to you, and thinking, fuck it, I'm too stubborn to let this asshole win by walking away. That's the dirty secret. Nobody puts in the vows. Sometimes love isn't enough. You stay because you've invested too much to let them have the satisfaction of being right about you being a mistake. You stay because you've already wasted the best years of your life on this person, and you'll be damned if you waste the rest, starting over with some new idiot who doesn't even know you hate cilantro. You stay because you're 45, and the idea of explaining your childhood trauma to a stranger on a third date makes you want to lie down in traffic. You stay because the devil you know chews slightly less loudly than the devil you don't. You stay because you're stubborn. You see it in the old couples who've been married 60 years and still bicker over who left the garage door open in 1973. They're not staying because they're blissed out soulmates. They're staying because neither of them is willing to die first and give the other one the last word. My grandparents were like that. Grandpa would fall asleep in his recliner every night at 8:15 sharp, mouth open, snoring like a freight train. Grandma would sit across the room, knitting and muttering, "If he dies in that chair, I swear to God I'll kill him." They fought every day for 71 years, and when he finally did die, in that goddamn chair, she sat next to his body and said, "Told you I'd outlast you, you old bastard." Then she cried for 3 straight days. That's love. Ugly, stubborn, ridiculous love. You stay because quitting feels like admitting they broke you. You've built an entire civilization together. The inside jokes, the shared enemies, the weird holiday traditions nobody else understands, the way you both know exactly how many seconds to microwave the leftover lasagna. You've survived miscarriages, bankruptcies, affairs that almost happened, kids who hated you for a while, parents who died, bodies that betrayed you. You've got scar tissue that matches. And some days the only thing keeping you from torching it all is the sheer stubborn refusal to let all that history turn out to be for nothing. You stay because you're too stubborn to let the worst version of them be the final version. You've seen them at their absolute shittiest. Drunk, cruel, lazy, selfish, lying, screaming, ugly crying in the fetal position on the bathroom floor. And they've seen you at yours. You know exactly how awful they can be. And some mornings you wake up and look at them brushing their teeth and think, I could leave right now and never have to deal with this person's bullshit again. But then you remember the other versions. The one who held your hair while you puked from chemo. The one who drove through a blizzard to get you when your car died. The one who sat in the NICU for 43 days straight holding a baby the size of a soda can. You're too stubborn to let the asshole version erase the hero version. You decide to wait it out. You bet on the long game. You stay because you're too stubborn to start over. Dating at 45 isn't freedom. It's a second job with worse pay and more emotional paperwork. You'd have to learn someone new's family, someone new's baggage, someone new's sexual quirks, someone new's preferred brand of toothpaste. You'd have to explain why you still sleep with the stuffed bear you've had since you were 6. You'd have to train another human not to put metal in the microwave. The thought of doing all that again makes you want to lie down and die. So you look at your spouse, who already knows all your worst stories and still hasn't left, and you think, hey, good enough. You stay because you're too stubborn to let the kids win. They've been trying to divide and conquer since they learned to talk. A daddy said I could have ice cream. Mommy lets me stay up late. You and your spouse have spent 2 decades presenting a united front, even when you hated each other's guts. You've sat in the driveway after putting the kids to bed and screamed every profanity in the book at each other, then walked back inside holding hands because the little terrorists cannot be allowed to smell blood in the water. Quitting now would be letting them win. Fuck that. You stay because you're too stubborn to admit your mother was right. She warned you. She saw the red flags. She said, that one's trouble. And you married them anyways, just to prove you knew better. Walking away now would be handing her the victory on a silver platter. You'll die first. You stay because you're too stubborn to let the depression win. Some years one of you disappears into the dark. You stop recognizing the person sleeping next to you. They don't get out of bed for weeks. They talk about ending it. And you become a human life raft, dragging them through the days, making the appointments, hiding the pills, lying to their boss, holding them while they sob about how they're a burden. You do it because quitting would mean the darkness gets to claim them, and you're too goddamn stubborn to let that happen. You stay because you're too stubborn to let cancer win, or dementia, or the layoff, or the affair that almost happened, or whatever fresh hell life throws next.
You dig your heels in and say, "Not on my watch." You stay because you're too stubborn to let the story end sad. You've got this narrative in your head. We made it. Against all odds, we made it. You want the last chapter to be the two of you sitting on a porch somewhere, old and creaky, still arguing about the Christmas lights, still holding hands. You want to win the long game. You want to be the couple that people look at and say, "How the hell did they do that?" You want to die knowing you outlasted every statistic that said you wouldn't. That's the real vow nobody says out loud. I'm too fucking stubborn to let us fail. Not today. Maybe not tomorrow either. We'll see how I feel after the next fight. But probably not then either, because I'm stubborn as hell. And so are you. And that's why we're still